Hidden altcoin gems, and what are they? This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, keeping technical analysis short and sweet. Like and subscribe if you haven't. But we're looking at Bitcoin as always for the first coin, but I believe we are going to have a further drop down before Jerome Powell does the interest rate cuts, which are most likely going to happen, and then we're going to have that push up within the market. So moving on over to XDC, the entry does look very nice as we are holding support on the 618 Fibonacci and above the 200 EMA, as well as the RSI is right around the 50. The yellow is going to be testing this purple, and if we can hold that as support, we can start seeing some higher lows. If Bitcoin pulls back, I think we may test this 200 EMA, maybe a little lower, to get some liquidity before coming up and pushing this downward trend line. However, we could just have a steady consolidation, and when we break this downward trend line, XDC can take off very quickly. XDC can be traded on MEXC, same as Tornado Cash, and if you're going to use MEXC, I always recommend VPN. I will do a quick short on how to use VPN. If you don't understand how to use VPN, it's free, but you can trade Tornado Cash and XDC, which are very cheap and have very high potential to start increasing in price. Looking at XLM falling within this downward wedge, which is a flag pattern, and we could expect for this push up. Oops. Oh, I had it that time. There we go. If we break that downward wedge, this is kind of where we are looking for the next increase in price. When we break this point, we could expect a push all the way up to 64.6 cents for something that is currently at 35 cents. And right in that area, this is actually where the cup and handle finishes play, and cup and handles are absolutely massive for bullish movement. One of the ones I'm going to bring up is DIMO. Keeping XLM in mind, if you're buying XRP, XRP is one of the coins that I recommend holding. We are in the downward channel. We're holding support above this 50% mark in this bigger downward channel, and we may be testing this downward trend line once more, and if we break that, we could expect the push up to $4 to $5. And there is staking allowed with XRP. XRP in the future is going to be a massive adoption with it, so get in while it's $2.80 or anywhere down here, dollar cost average into it, and just hold it. You can stake it and earn passive income, and it's a great way to just have money stashed away where you can start earning money with your money. But none of this is financial advice. LCX is one of the hidden gems for sure. We are testing this 200 EMA yet again. We do want to see it hold support over this black upward trend line, or at least over the CM guppy. However, if that does not hold, we would be looking for an entry a little bit lower, potentially off of this black downward trend line, which if Bitcoin pulls back, we could see that lower low. Ultimately, you want to do the Fibonacci, more or less. 618 is right in this area, which is right below the CM guppy, which is where we could see LCX going before pulling back up over the 200 EMA, and when we can hold stable above that 200 EMA, right around the 15-cent mark is where you'd want to be looking for a bigger entry. I'll do Hbar because I don't really talk about Hbar that much, but it is in the similar downward wedge, and we got the price prediction being this from the bar height from the flag. So from the bottom down here all the way to the top up here, that is the distance, and we can paste that right there, which is right about the one retracement and would be meeting this previous high before potentially seeing a little bit of sell-off. Currently at 22 cents, definitely has a very long way to go, and highly recommended if you're buying that. And XLM and XRP. Epic trying to hold some support. This is also traded on MEXC. The reference is in the description below, but keep an eye on this one. Epic is going to be partnering, or is partnered with XRP. Keep an eye on it. It could be moving up quickly. Polygon is one that I haven't brought up for a while, but we see that we had a clear double bottom here, and we've had that push towards the 200 EMA, and now we just need to hold support above that 200 EMA. A lot of the time I like to invert this, and you can see that the trend line that we need to be holding support off of is this. We may come back down and touch this, and then push even further this way, where there is less resistance towards the upside. And Polygon, on this chart, it shows 77 cents. Currently at 28 cents, there's not a real loss, as this is a pretty strong bottom, very high volume, and it looks very, very healthy. If you got $100, that's not a bad one to do for a swing trade. And Ox Protocol is one that's kind of new. Inverse head and shoulders, clearly inverse head and shoulders. We've seen this many times before. There's the left shoulder, there's the head, there's the right shoulder, and when this plays out, it would be above the 200 EMA, above this upward trend line that we had placed, and we could see a strong movement back up towards 50 cents from 27 cents, and it's got a lot higher price point than that. I believe it's all the way up here at a $2.43 for a 27-cent investment, and it will most likely go beyond that. This is a very, very low point for ZRX. If you haven't heard of it, now you've heard of it, and it looks very healthy. Moving all the way back here, Perpetual Protocol, struggling. It's struggling for sure. It did not hold that support, so this is going to be the stronger support for it, and we really need it to get over that 200 EMA before we start seeing some major movement within Perpetual Protocol. CTSI, kind of unknown, but it is doing a very similar pattern we've seen before. It is testing this 200 EMA a lot, trying to break out immensely high volume, broke a downward trend line. All of these are green flags for me personally, and it's keeping that 200 EMA real close, which means it's very, very weak, and we could be pushing more to the upside. Currently at 7 cents, but a high of nearly $1.79. Astronomical potential. Looking at that volume alone, we see that we may have bottomed out for CTSI, and if you have not entered, this would be your sign and entry point for a 7-cent entry on CTSI, potentially all the way up to $1.79. Astronomical. May not seem like much, but that is pretty major. IOTX holding support on this upward trend line, which we had placed, but it's pretty much just got to get over this 200 EMA before we want to look further into it. Ultimately, the 3.4 cent area. Tornado Cash, one of my absolute favorites. We are looking at $13.95. Original entry at $7.52 within my trading signal channel, and Tornado Cash can be traded on MEXC. Reference is in the description below. I will do a walkthrough on that with VPN. But Tornado Cash has been only bullish, like we've talked about. We broke a downward trend line, kept the 200 EMA nice and close, kept building support, broke this area at $11, had that breakout, retest, and held above that $11 mark, broke another downward trend line, and it's starting that bullish momentum. Everything is very, very green for Tornado Cash. If you did not get in at $11, $13 to $14 is still not bad. We may have a little bit further retracement towards the $12 mark to test this downward trend line, but after that, Tornado Cash is going to move pretty quickly, and you're going to have to pay around $20 to $32 for the same thing you could have bought at $13.95. Aerodrome. Highly recommended Tornado Cash. I'm actually going to be putting more into it today. Aerodrome tested that downward trend line, had that consolidation downward wedge. Not a whole bunch to look at. We're going to have consolidation for a little bit. Bitcoin could pull back, which would test this downward trend line yet again, and the 618 Fibonacci retracement before testing this upward trend line, hopefully, and breaking out to the upside. Flare actually is a very good one. Flare, we've seen this pattern before, pushing up over the downward trend line, holding above the 200 EMA, testing the downward trend line at the same point. We've seen this in quant, and the next stop would be pushing towards 0.38 cents, currently at 2 cents, but partnering with XRP and staking. You kind of see how all these companies are partnering with XRP. That's why you invest in XRP as well as the sub companies to maximize your potential. But getting in on 2 cents on Flare is not missing out in any way whatsoever. We've seen it in the past. We've had major pumps, scalps, everything down here within this 2 cent area, and we are back there a year later, and it is looking very, very healthy. And let's do DIMO and DNT and GRT. DIMO is actually one I really wanted to point out. It is at 7 cents, but I was trading this back here, and I really wanted to point out what we've seen in the past. We've seen a push up, downward consolidation, push up, consolidation for a long time, and then a push up, downward consolidation, push up, downward consolidation, major breakout. What I'm looking at with that and this is we just need to get above that 200 EMA, get that consolidation, and we will see a major pump in DIMO from 7 cents. We went all the way up to around 84 cents. DNT, consolidation like no other, but this is one I definitely have a pretty big bag of, as this is ready to take off within the upcoming weeks, if not months. And GRT, similar thing, bigger inverse head and shoulders potentially right here. We could drag this out all the way over here, and the head being this, and this being the other shoulder. Inverse head and shoulders playing out, and when this starts curving upwards, we may even see a lower point testing this 0.786, but above the head and reversing over this 200 EMA. Major entry would be around 10 cents, 83 for GRT, but it definitely has a very long way to go to get to the top. That's it for this video. Like and subscribe. Definitely use the reference links below if you want to trade Tornado Cash or XDC or anything like that. And good luck. Have fun with it. I will see you on the next one.